Hello and welcome to the Oxygen Addict Triathlon Podcast. We're brought to you every week by our sponsors PrecisionHydration.com.
Precision Hydration offer electrolyte drinks in different strengths to match how you sweat. Personalise your hydration strategy today at precisionhydration.com and get a free box or tube of pH worth up to $9.99 using the code OxygenAddict.
And we're also brought to you by TeamOxygenAddict.com Triathlon Coaching.
Training plans, coaching support from your host Rob Wilby, monthly video coaching calls and a private Facebook group for you and your teammates.
And remember, you can join our new Oxygen Addict Triathlon Community Facebook page where there's loads of triathlon chat going on. So any questions you might have, you can ask them in there. Just search for Oxygen Addict Triathlon Community in Facebook. We've got over 850 members now held in there, which is brill. So that's all good
Growing
news.
nicely. Lots of chat in there. Questions about all sorts of things and lots of different advice from different people. It's good.
Yeah, it's cool. All right, and welcome to the show then. Hels, how are you today?
Yeah, good. I was in the gym at 6:15 this morning.
Wow.
Rocking on a Monday morning. Getting it done. Loving it. Yep. And did a nice run on Friday and then spent most of the weekend. You know when you go to a wedding and then you're just in a bubble, you just feel like you've missed, kind of 2 days on planet Earth or a day and a half on planet Earth because you've been surrounded by weddingness.
That's a mark of my age, Hals. I don't get invited to weddings anymore. I get invited to divorces.
Right. Okay.
It's been a long time since I went to a wedding, but I know what you mean. It's
Yeah,
not good for the training, is it? It eats up. I always used to feel, I'm a grumpy git anyway, but I used to feel really resentful that it was it's the most important day in your friends' lives. And I'm there going, I'm missing my long ride. I bet loads of people can relate to that feeling though.
I think they probably can. And I guess it depends, doesn't it? It depends a lot whether if it's, your friends or if it's your maybe your other half's friends and you've never even met one of them or whatever, then that could up the resent ante a little bit, couldn't it?
And there's always that thing, right, where you're going to your other half's friend's wedding and they haven't spoken since they were housemates at university 8 years ago, and they're never going to talk again, and you're going, right, so we're driving to Norwich for the weekend to spend time with people you haven't spoken to in 8 years and will never talk to again.
And you've never met.
I'm starting to sound really jaded. I need to stop this.
Oh,
I wonder whether there's heads nodding up and down the country as people are on the long runs right now going, yeah, I've got to miss my long ride this weekend as well.
I think there might be a few. So yeah, Saturday was spent a lot in the car. Sunday was spent a lot in the car. But then I packed in got a good run done on Friday. And then the two of us went because we had obviously spent quite a few hours in the car. And then I just get that I just have to go for a run, even though you're shattered, because obviously being a wedding again, it's a late night. And I thought, no, just got to go for a very, very steady run around the lanes, and then we can crack on with the rest of Sunday. So it was a weekend when I wasn't really in any kind of bubble other than the wedding bubble.
You've got to take the dog for a run. That's the thing. Everybody's got a little sheepdog that lives inside the brain. And
what? Sorry, you're going to have to explain that one.
Right, so if you've ever had a dog, or you've got a friend that's got a dog, and you don't exercise the dog goes nuts and it chews the carpet and eats your slippers and stuff. Well, everyone who's into triathlon and Ironman, they've got a dog living inside their head. That's my theory. And if you go out for exercise, that dog's nice and happy and it'll lie down and be calm all day. But if you don't exercise, the dog in your brain goes mental and you sit there going, ah! So that's my theory of the internal sheepdog. You have to take your own little imaginary sheepdog out for a run. So I just used to go, I'm just taking the dog out. And it was my way of getting my brain to be calm.
I love that. Is that does Steve Peters? I know he's got the chimp paradox thing, but does he have the sheepdog paradox?
Maybe it could be my book.
Yeah.
Maybe it could be that. Yeah. I bet there's people nodding their heads to that as well, though. If you get to exercise for the day and you feel bonkers, there's something going on, isn't there?
Well, talking of which, I was getting cabin fever big time last week, and I was thinking, I am literally sending myself loopy. And then I was like, Helen, don't be such a tit. Go outside. You are allowed to go outside and go and get some fresh air and go and move, go and do some exercise. It's okay if you went for a little half an hour swim this morning. By lunchtime, if you sort of working at home on your own, that's a long time to have not really.
Yeah.
So I was like, don't be stupid, go and do something. And I felt so much better for just getting outside doing something.
Got to get the sheepdog moving.
There you go. There you go. Rob, very exciting news this week.
Go on. What have we got going on?
We have an interview with Nicola Spirig coming up on the show.
Two-time Olympic medalist Nicola Spirig on our little podcast.
On our podcast, Nicola Spirig's interview is going to be coming up in a little bit. It's ace.
I know it is. I've listened to it already. I had a good pre-listen, and I've got to say it's a scorcher. So make sure you stick around for that one, listeners.
Definitely. Rob, one of the other things that I did do yesterday, after walking the sheepdog, I'm going with that, and after batch cooking for a little bit, I actually did sit on my backside because I hadn't done enough sitting on the backside in the car, and caught up on Super League.
Yeah, it was cool, wasn't it?
Yes, it was really, really good in Mallorca.
I'll tell you what, before we go into that, let's just give a shout out to our results sponsor, Precision Hydration, because I know loads of people listening will have heard of them before. But if you haven't been onto the Precision Hydration website yet, get on there, get yourself the online sweat test done, and it'll give you a lead as to whether you are a particularly salty or a particularly heavy sweater, because we are currently, as we're recording, we are coming into the proper winter season, aren't we, Hells?
We are, for sure.
So that means people are going to be doing probably a lot more training indoors with the associated extra heat that gets created on the turbo or the treadmill. So lots of extra sweating is going on. And it also means people are going to be swimming a lot more, probably because they want to be indoors doing some exercise, with the associated extra cramps that brings on. Precision Hydration is the answer to your cramping and hydration problems. So if you're the kind of person whose feet go all knotted when they push off the wall in the pool, probably it's down to an electrolyte imbalance. So try some of the old Precision Hydration and see if that helps you out. Also, if you are running on the treadmill and find yourself looking like you're wearing, I don't know, a t-shirt you've just jumped into the swimming pool in, the chances are that you need to really take your rehydration seriously, both during and after that session on the treadmill or the turbo. So get over there. You can get £9.99 worth free using the code OxygenAddict. If you've already tried it and you think it's awesome, but you've run out, now is the time to press click, get loads fired up into your little training bag, so it's always there, so that you've got it when you need it. Because speaking as a man who suffers from a lot of cramp in his time, Hells, you do not want to be having that when the fix is simply a sachet of powder poured into your drink.
Oh, God, no. And Rob, go on as well to the precisionhydration.com website. If you click on the tab Hydration Advice, it comes up with their blogs. And there's a really, really good interview up there with Sarah Lewis, who recently competed at the ETU Middle Distance European Championship. She took silver. She talks in this interview about she's now trained under Brett Sutton. So there's a nice link here with the Nicola Spirig interview that's coming up. And yeah, she talks all about that and Racing Pro now. So go and have a look at that on precisionhydration.com, and then under their hydration advice, their blogs, you'll find it there.
Awesome stuff. So over to Super League in Mallorca then, which I've got to say, it looked like it was a pretty brilliant event. I like the fact the sun was shining over there as I was sitting in the rain watching it.
It looked a bit chilly on Saturday. They were there with their they interviewed Jodie Stimpson at the start, and she was in her puffer jacket, having decided not to go in to warm up because it was darn cold.
I didn't see that actually. I didn't see that, but I only saw the blue skies. So I guess that is the big challenge of doing the repeated swims without wetsuits if it's not roasty toasty, isn't it?
Yeah, they did look a little bit cold. Like Javier Gomez and Vicky Holland were part of the commentary team on site, and they were all there in their puffer jackets on Saturday. But then Sunday, it did look like the sun came out. Still, sort of coldish, but not like UK cold. Anyway, Rob, what a little course that was. It was great for the swim. It was in a cove, and they had to do.
It was ace, wasn't it? Like the ins and outs and around the buoy and back again, and that looked really interesting and fun, and it made great TV viewing, didn't it?
Yes, and then on the bike and the run, so the run course, if you've not seen any of the Super Leagues yet, go and check it out. You can go and watch it on the Super League YouTube channel. It's on BBC. You'll still find it on there as well because they've been showing it. So you'll be able to watch again. And honestly, it is just such a unique, incredibly exciting and enthralling race format. And if you ever sit there and get a little bit bored of the ITU races, because perhaps they're a little bit longer, this is so different. And it's ace. And then they have different shoots that if you've come into transition first, then you get to basically pick up 5 seconds really by taking a slightly shorter line, and it just adds to the suspense of the race.
Yeah, it's
and
good.
Tactics, and it's wicked.
Yeah, so who came out on top this time then?
So in the men's race again, it was in the overall, it was Vincent Louis who took it out.
He's the man, isn't he?
Yeah, at the moment he's basically won. He won in Jersey, didn't he? He won Malta, and then he's now taken the sort of the weekend in Mallorca as well. So Vincent Louis was overall winner there. Henry Schoeman second, and then Johnny Brownlee was third. So in the overall rankings for the current season, because they go into a grand final in Singapore in February, Vincent Louis is first, Henry Schoeman second, and then Richard Murray third, with Johnny Brownlee in fourth. That's on the men's side. On the women's side,
on the ladies' side,
well, so far it's just been the Katie Safaras show. She has been unstoppable really until this weekend, because we had Taylor Spivey back in action.
Okay.
And it was great. So she actually took the overall win for the weekend ahead of Katie and then Kirsten Casper. So it was a USA 1-2-3, but it was really great to watch the tactics coming into play. Unfortunately, Katie Safaras had a fall in transition, and she just wasn't looking as in control as she did in Malta, which it did get a little bit like, oh, this is predictable now.
Yeah.
Whereas having Taylor Spivey on really good form just added to the excitement of it all this weekend.
Good stuff. Yeah, I was a big fan of that, and I liked the fact that from the pros' point of view, having $100 grand top prize at the end of the grand final for doing, it would be 3 or 4 races basically to try and get that amount of money. It's the equivalent of, nearly the equivalent of winning Kona. I think Kona's worth 150 grand for the winner. So it's a massive payday for people, isn't it? Who are racing that kind of short distance race, which is great for the sport.
Oh, it's really good. And even within the weekend of Mallorca, for example, they would have had $1,000 on the line for like the first, within each little element basically. You win, you get that money. So it's
a lot more like pro cycling, isn't it? With like bonuses for this, that, and people actually racing each other to get there for it.
That is exactly it. So even if you might be doing, 3 mini triathlons in one morning, if there's a grand on the line in that first one, well, are you going to go for the sprint finish, knowing that it will take a little bit out? Well, I don't know. Or do you hold back and kind of give up the grand because you think, well, actually, I need to get through race 2 and hopefully get into race 3, because obviously as they go through them as well, they tend to eliminate people along the way.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's really
makes for good racing for sure, doesn't it?
Yeah, really good racing, really good viewing. So go and have a look if you've not yet followed Super League.
One for the turbo. One for the turbo for later as you're chugging down your precision hydration. Get on it, everyone. All right. Also, then a quick shout out. We had 70.3. Oh, go on, how do you pronounce it? Los Cabos?
Well done. In Mexico, Los Cabos. This is still on my list, Rob, of races I would love to do one day. Sam Appleton took the men's win in 3:48, and Ellie Salthouse took the women's race in 4:17.
And a bit close to home, it's always, I've raced this a few times back in the day, the human race Ball Buster, which takes place on a circuit that goes around Box Hill, which most people will know was the hill that was used in the Olympic road race cycling. It's an absolutely brutal season ender, and almost everyone who turns up there is in a kind of end of season mindset. Oh, we'll go and do the Ball Buster, it'll be fun. It's a It's an 8 mile, 24 mile, 8 mile duathlon, and you go one circuit on the run, 3 on the bike, and 1 on the run. So going down from the top of the hill, round, and back up the hill again. The 2 times I've done it, I've been so smashed at the end of it. They actually say in the race literature that they give out, like, don't underestimate this. It's going to be as hard on you as doing a marathon. And you go, yeah. And even the second time I went to do it, I was like, yeah, whatever. And I got to the end, and I'd been to stay with a mate of mine in London, and I was just a write-off. I couldn't go out with him in the afternoon on the Saturday, even to wander down into Wimbledon, because my quads were so smashed.
Oh, didn't Lucy Gossett? She won it overall a couple of years ago, didn't she?
She's won it overall a couple of times, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Well, this year Ben Price took the win ahead of Nicola Spirig and John Franklin.
2:39 as well. Very very fast time. I think the course record is only a couple of minutes faster than that. So the thing with the ball buster is it's always weather dependent. So this time of year, some years it can be quite pleasant, and some years there can be ice on the corners, and you're like, ooh. I remember talking to a guy back in the day who was it, the lad who won that year? Anyway, he used to have a friend of his on a motorbike, like, ride into the corner in front of him. So practice the racing line on the hill on the way down. So it's not just about your fitness going uphill, it's about how fast you dare go into the blind bends on the way down. So I can't remember who it was now, but I remember thinking, okay. You know, when you're trying to be competitive and thinking, this guy spent 10 weeks training for this by racing the downhills, not just training for the uphills. So yeah, fair play to Ben Price. That's a storming time.
And I guess that is where you can pick up, you know, if you are confident going, like on any course, isn't it? If you go and do the recce and you know it,
exactly,
and you know where to,
and you don't get
where
stuck
you can
behind
speed
traffic.
Yeah, exactly. I remember in Ironman Wales and just talking to a guy, and he was from down the road, and he said, this is where my local knowledge completely pays off, because he would fly off down the downhill, and then we'd catch up again.
It makes a big difference, doesn't it, if you know the course?
On the flat. Yeah, and he totally knew it. In the women's race, Helena Hayes won ahead of Tamsin Neal and Deborah Hope. And then, Rob, I spotted a Team OA in action in the relay.
Yeah, so it turns out one of the guys I coached, Neil Feekins, who's been a podcast patron for ages, his team past our prime, God bless him, finished second overall, and he put a scorching bike leg out of a 1:10, which I think was in the top 5 bike legs of the day. So top work, Neil. It was he told me it was an end of season party for him and his mates, but it looks like he's pretty much laid it out on the line with that one.
And it was won by Team THE.
Good stuff. Good job it's not Team TUE, isn't it?
Very good job.
All right then, so Coach's Couch this week.
Yeah, Rob, so question. So you're often talking about getting triathletes to do hard intervals on the bike during winter.
Yep.
While they're running is easy or steady pace. So will their run fitness improve during this time? And is there a way to test that?
Okay, cool. So we're talking again about a section of the time training system here where we're focusing on the intelligent use of training intensity and the effective use of your effort in training. And so quick recap would be, in winter, I'll have my athletes train really hard on the bike and try and get the bike fitness really high. And during that time, all the running that they're going to do is going to be easy pace or steady pace. And by that, I mean conversational type pace. And a real common sort of worry is, like, am I not going to lose run fitness? Am I going to get slower during this time? But what we see is that because the cardiovascular fitness gets increased during this time with them doing the hard work on the bike, their run performances come in the spring are often they're running PBs, even though they haven't done any fast run training during the winter, because they're benefiting from the fact they're not picking up injuries or niggles, and they get that consistency of a whole winter of training 3 or 4 times a week on the run without any soreness or niggles. So they do end up with an increased run fitness. But the big challenge is it's talking to that sheepdog in your mind that I talked about earlier. It's people's brains saying, how do I know I'm not losing fitness? How do I know that I'm getting better at running if all the running I'm doing is relatively quite slow? So what I do is every month I have them do what I call like an aerobic run test. So rather than a flat out run test like you do in a race, we say we're going to do this at a really easy kind of heart rate. And a rough rule of thumb, I use the Phil Maffetone guidelines and say, right, you just take your age away from 180. So for me, I'm 45 years old, take 45 away from 180, and that gives me a heart rate cap of 135 beats a minute. And I'm going to go out and run 3 miles on a flat course, and I'm just going to monitor my heart rate so I run at exactly that 135 beats a minute. So the ideal place to do it on is a running track. You do your warm up and you gradually get faster. You don't have a break before you start the run test. You just cross the start line, ideally with your heart rate already at 135. You click go on your stopwatch. That starts recording your heart rate. And you just keep running as fast as you can go without your heart rate going above that limit. What will probably happen for most people is they have to back the pace off a little bit progressively across that run test. But when you finish those 3 miles and you press stop on your stopwatch, you can have a look at the data afterwards and get a readout for how fast each one of those 3 miles was. And then across the course of the winter, if you repeat this run test, what you'll see is for the same heart rate, your run speed gets faster. And so it's a real good test for Ironman or 70.3 athletes who, like essentially, if you like, nobody's run in an Ironman is limited by how fast a runner they are. Because, even Joe Skipper turning out a 240, he can probably run a 220 marathon. So his running speed and fitness isn't the limiter. It's the aerobic fitness and how well he can fuel himself aerobically that's going to be the limiter. So this is a really specific way for long distance athletes to be able to check on the fitness improvements through the winter without having to push themselves really hard and risking picking up a niggle.
Makes sense.
Yep. So get out there and give it a try, everybody. That's my challenge to you. And one thing I've been doing with the guys and girls in the Team Oxygen Addict private group, and we'll do it in the community Facebook group as well, is if you go out and you do this test, post your results up in the community page. Because firstly, that's number one, it's going to give you social validation that you've actually gone out and done this and you're saying to yourself, I'm consciously trying to improve my run this winter. But the second thing it's going to do is it allows us to build up this bank of data of a whole range of different athletes to say, right, we've got this bunch of people did this in November, December, January and February under the same conditions at the same heart rate, and this is what their run paces did when they trained in a certain way across the winter. And so it's going to give us loads of data points to say, we've already got loads of data points already, but it's even more. It's my way of trying to be a scientist without being in a university, collect data from everyone in there, everyone who listens, essentially.
Rob, have you when would have been the last time, have you done it recently or like over the past couple of years?
I haven't done it over the last couple of years. I used to do this. I used to do this all the time when I was in training, back when I was racing. So I was probably in what would I have been at the time? Probably been in my early to mid 30s as I was doing a lot of this. And so I would do my runs at about 150 beats a minute. That was a number I just used to it. And actually the exact number isn't that important as long as it's considerably below where your sort of functional threshold number would be. The actual number's not that important. The big test is what changes when you keep one of the variables constant. So I would typically go out at the start of winter and I would try to run at 150 beats a minute and I'd be rubbish. I'd be almost crawling along. But by focusing on doing it and checking in on the watch, you can get to the point where your speed can increase. I think I got down to about 7 minutes 15 a mile at 150 beats a minute. So come Ironman race day, and I never managed to do my Ironman marathon at 7 minutes 15 a mile, but it allowed me to go, I know I can hold this number forever. I know it's totally aerobic. I know that this is exactly what I've trained for. And it means I didn't go off too fast when the people around me did. And it meant I had the confidence to know I could hold that pace because it was entirely aerobic, like I'd trained with, And
the first time that you did do it, when you are trying to keep did you find that difficult to keep your heart rate down? Because a lot of people are quite used to sort of going at the pace that they probably think that's about right.
Exactly.
Most
people's brains default to you run basically as fast as you can and get faster to the point where the run finishes. we tend to push ourselves in our runs, don't we? So even the concept of running submaximally is quite alien to most athletes when they first do it. So
it's really hard, isn't it? That first to sort of control yourself.
Yeah, it really is. And, I'm always telling this story back in the days when I was training down at Altrincham and, my mind's just gone blank. Dave Norman used to go out for a run. He won the Manchester Marathon twice. He's like a 2:17, 2:18 marathon runner. There'd be a big group of guys met up on a Sunday morning for a long, easy run. And I'd prepare myself the first time and think, right, Dave Norman's here. We're going to get absolutely smashed. And lo and behold, we went out and we ran 7 minutes 45 a mile, or maybe 8 minutes a mile. And then he actually is a great example of someone who would post all of his training logs online. I think they're still there if you go and search for them on Google. And this 2 hours 18 marathon runner did most of his running between 7:30 and 8 minutes a mile. So I was left at the end of this run going, wow, like this stuff people write about in the training manuals, the elite athletes are actually doing this. They're doing their slow runs really slow, and they're fast training and hard training really hard. And there is that difference in the pace, whereas I think most of us kind of blend into this middle ground where it's not really hard enough in the hard sessions to get the effect they want, and the easy sessions are not easy enough to allow that gap of recovery.
And that's like exactly what Elliot Smale said, isn't it, the other week?
Yeah, it's a great example from him, wasn't it? 80 miles a week, and probably 75 of them run really easy.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, if you want a bit more on that, go back and listen to the Elliot Smales episode is the word I was after.
It's jolly good. And a final word from us, if you're interested in learning more about how the time training system can help you improve over 70.3 Ironman, you can watch our free webinar. There's a link to it in the show notes. Team Oxygen Addicts itself is now closed. We've had a brilliant response over the last 4 weeks with taking new members in. So we're going to close the doors for now, and we're going to concentrate on the members that are in. And so as a thank you for watching the webinar, we're going to give away a free 4-week winter training plan using all these principles that I'm talking about. So we're kind of putting our money where our mouth is here. For the people who watch the webinar, you get the full 4-week training plan as if you join Team OA. You get to try it out for free, and hopefully you get to see that it works really well for you and go, well, that's a bit of a no-brainer then, isn't it, really? So bit of a risk giving something away for free, but maybe not, because it's the thing that's going to allow people to see it actually works. I think it's difficult for people to trust something they haven't actually seen with their own eyes sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Right, Hells, I want you to tell me about your interview of the week.
Oh, Robert, it's brilliant. I think the next half an hour is going to be well worth your time. I was lucky enough to catch up with Nicola Spirig. It's quite an exclusive interview, I reckon. 2012 Olympic gold medalist. I don't think she does that many podcast interviews, so we're really lucky to have her on. She discusses everything from family life to studying law, what it's like to be coached by Brett Sutton, train alongside Daniela Ryf. Quite amazingly, I think, she's going to be having her 3rd child next spring.
Wow.
But, I mean, that in itself is pretty incredible, given that she's still been racing, at the top level. She intends to come back in time for Tokyo 2020, and that would be her 5th Olympic Games appearance, which, as a triathlete,
amazing,
that's astonishing.
It's astonishing for a rower who's like, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but sitting down to do the sport. Yeah. The fact that it's a 5th Olympics and one that involves running is just almost unbelievable, isn't it, in terms of the destructive forces on your body? Yeah.
And there's so much in this interview that you can take about, the importance of balance in so much. She went and she finished her studies and yeah, you're just going to enjoy it. So here we go. Here is our interview with Nicola Spirig. Nicola Spirig, hello and welcome to the Oxygen Addict Triathlon podcast. First of all, congratulations on the expecting child number 3.
Hi Helen, thank you very much. Hi everyone.
Yeah, it's really exciting that you're going to be expecting your 3rd child.
Oh, definitely, yes. We are really looking forward to spring and having a 3rd child. It was our big dream, I would say, and we are really happy.
Have you always wanted to have a big family?
It was always clear for both of us that we wanted to have kids. We didn't know exactly how many. My husband always said, he wanted 5, and I was just laughing and saying, well, you have to find another woman then. I'm not having 5, but it was kind of a joke. But yeah, we definitely wanted 2, and we said we would see after having the second one how it goes and how it feels, and then decide if we wanted to have another one.
And how has it been for you competing at the top whilst being a mum as well, and juggling both?
Well, on the one hand, it hasn't been easy because you're constantly busy. If you're not training, you're home with the kids, and if you're not home with the kids or they are sleeping, you're doing your emails, and so there's not much free time. But on the other hand, I see it as a true privilege to combine both. I mean, I love being a mom and I love having a family. That's, to me, that's the most important. That's my priority number one. And to combine it with still doing my passion and being able to compete at such a high level, I think it's a real privilege for me.
And were you always confident that you would, for example, be able to make it back to the very top and be on that start line in Rio, for example?
No, not at all. To me, it was important that I could prepare the Olympics in London as an athlete only, without family. That's what I always said to Rito, my husband, as well. He's a bit older. He was always, as I said, we were always knowing we wanted a family. We have been together for 10 years then. So it was clear we wanted to found a family. But to me, I always said, well, that's after London, after the Olympics 2012, because I want to be selfish for that preparation and prepare everything like 100% and just have to be responsible for myself. And once I had that opportunity, I was happy to have a family, and I always said, well, if my career is finished now, either because my body won't work anymore as it did before having a kid, or because mentally I would probably not be as motivated anymore or not really find it important anymore to race, that would have been completely fine for me. So I was happy to finish my career after London and having a family then.
Really?
Yes, that was... I didn't know. It was actually funny because before London I was always saying, oh, well, that might be the last time I'm packing my bike. That might be the last time I'm buying swimming goggles. And so I was actually quite fine with just finishing after that. Just looking back at an amazing career, and being Olympic champion was even more amazing. So yes, if it would have been different, and for some reason I wouldn't have been able to race anymore, that would have been fine for me. Yeah.
So what was it inside you that made you really want to return for Rio, and now as well for Tokyo? That's the aim, isn't it?
Yes, that's the aim. And it was just, we had Yannis, our first child, and I started to train a little bit again, and I just felt that I still love training, and I still had a passion for triathlon, for sports, and I started to race again, and it went actually pretty well. I felt that the priorities had changed, that my family was number one now, and of course when Yannis was sick or something went wrong, I stayed home and the training was cancelled. But it didn't. There were also a lot of advantages. Like after a bad session, I wasn't going home like before and thinking about, oh, why was that so bad, and thinking about it for half a day. But I just came home and saw Yannis and saw his smile, and it just wasn't important anymore. So I could take it much more relaxed and not think about it that much, and just be happy to be able to train and to do my best. So I think that was a big advantage for me. And so I just got better and got fitter again and started racing, and everything went pretty well. I started to give myself some goals again, like the marathon in athletics, Europeans, or doing an Ironman at 2:14, so completely different, just having fun and having some challenges and just feeling that I'm not done yet and that it worked with the family and doing sports at the same time.
It's amazing. And so Tokyo would be your 5th Olympics. Just that's incredible, especially in a sport like triathlon.
Yes. Yeah, well, I if you would have asked me a few years ago, I wouldn't never have said that I would go to 5 Olympics. It was just like I have studied law because I was sure I would finish my career earlier and just do a normal job, and I wasn't expecting to be in the sports that long, but as I said, I'm just still enjoying it a lot and still being able to compete at that high level. So I just think, well, I should enjoy it as long as I can and see if I can take on this new big challenge and probably even compete for another medal.
It's, honestly, because even watching in Rio, and you were on the you were absolutely smashing it on the bike, and then sort of side by side with Gwen on the run, and it was incredible to watch.
Yeah, it was quite amazing for myself. Yeah, the lead up to the Olympics in Rio wasn't perfect at all. Like I was a mom now, so nothing went to plan, and I was the defending Olympic champion, so basically I had this pressure, and then I broke my hand a few months before the Olympics, so I really it wasn't perfect, but I still believed I could race for a medal, and we still prepared to try and win, and it was really a great race for me. I think I came to the finish line. I was really happy because I knew I gave everything and tried everything to win that gold, and was more than happy to win the silver.
What was said to each other on the run?
The little talk, the little chat.
Yeah.
Well, I knew Gwen was unbeaten, I think, since 4 years then, when she got off the bike with the main group and was running. So no one had beaten her in that case since 4 years. So my coach and I knew, well, if she got off the bike with me and all the others, I would need different tactics to beat her, to try and beat her. My coach said, well, she's just physically, she's a better runner at the moment than you. We couldn't quite follow the tactics we wanted and do the training we wanted to leading into the Olympics because of the broken hand. So I couldn't train as much and run as much as I wanted. So I knew physically she was running faster, and he said, well, you need to think as a boxer and just try to unsettle her somehow and get her out of the rhythm. So I said, well, that's not triathlon. Triathlon is running, cycling, swimming as fast as you can, and the fastest is winning. And he was laughing and saying, that's fine, but so you will lose, and was walking away. Of course, that gave me something to think. And then my husband and I were joking, and he was running along with me and said, oh, I'm Gwen now, so what do you do? And we were just laughing about it, but it made me think. And during the race, I was in the first half, I was just hanging on, and I was really hurting. But I think Gwen was a bit surprised that halfway there was still someone running with her. Normally that wasn't the case. So she let me lead, which she never does normally, which for me was a positive sign that she's not 100% sure to win. But then we came into the headwind again, and I knew if I would lead and she would attack, I would have no chance at all. So I turned around to her and said, well, let's share the lead, and you go in front again. And she said, no, I was leading the first 2 laps. And then I just used it as a little chat to try and break her rhythm. So we slowed down, and I said, well, yes, but I'm already having a gold medal and you don't, so you have to do the work. And it was just all about trying to unsettle her. And as I said, I knew we had 25 seconds to the 3rd and the 4th athlete, so I didn't have too much to play around. About 10 seconds, I thought, well, I can risk that. and just tried to get her out of her rhythm. So she was still better, but I tried everything, and I think it was interesting also, as you said, for the spectators to watch, and something different.
And did Brett say to you afterwards, well done for talking to her, well done for trying to disrupt her mental?
No, not really. But to me, it was just the knowledge that I had tried everything. Like I had a good swim for myself. I got out in the first pack. I really tried to break away, but the 2 or 3 athletes that could have helped me were sick or had cramps or something else. So, and I knew it would have been hard for me to break away on my own. So when this didn't work, I was just leading a lot and making the bike hard, so that everyone had to work on the bike. And then on the run, again, I really gave my best, and I even worked on this mental side. So I knew I had done everything I could to do the perfect race, and that made me happy.
You've done a standalone marathon, you mentioned it, in Zurich in 2014 at the European Athletics Championships. Gwen has obviously now switched to just pure marathon running. What have you made of her transition?
It's quite interesting for me to watch. I never thought of completely switching, but to me it was really refreshing at that stage to just have different challenges, as I said, to aim for the Europeans in athletics, in marathon, and then to race a marathon, an Ironman. To me, it was really good to not race the World Series races and the same races the whole career. So I think it can help her. But to me, yes, for me, it was never a question to completely switch to running.
And so that wouldn't be something that you would look at doing after Tokyo, for example?
No. For fun, doing run races for fun, yes. But completely switch. I have a different point of view maybe to Gwen. I think I'm not able to run with the best. So I don't think I could become Olympic champion in a marathon. Just because of my body, I can't handle a lot of miles just running, and for example, I have muscly arms, so I'm already carrying more weight on my arms than the normal runners. So just looking at that, I think it's not a goal to become Olympic champion in marathon. I thought of qualifying for marathon for the Olympics once, just as a challenge. I love challenges and new challenges. So that would have been switching for a little time to marathon or to running, something like that. Yes, it would be interesting, but not as a real career.
And has it surprised you that Gwen has made that switch?
First, yes, probably. I wasn't expecting it, but I know the feeling to wanting to try something new and to have a new challenge. So I can understand that thought of her.
You've done an Ironman as well, as you in Cozumel, again back in 2014. Is that something that interests you in the long term, or is it going to be Tokyo and then I have achieved everything I've wanted to achieve? That's good for me.
To me, it was really interesting to do an Ironman. I'm training with a lot of long distance athletes, so I see them train every day basically, and we had a friendly discussion all the time. What's harder and what's better, like Olympic distance or Ironman? And of course they said, oh, Ironman is much harder and you have to do so much more and longer and whatever. And I said, no, you have to be so much faster in Olympic distance and train harder. So that's the real triathlon. So of course I had to do one to actually say, well, I've done both now, I can judge now. But of course, there was just, no, it was interesting for me to try one. And I think it would be really interesting to see how I am compared to the best long distance athletes of the world and to do Hawaii. But for that, I know I would have to prepare 100% again. And long distance does need a few more training hours on the bike, especially. And with the family and with all the other projects in my life I just don't have that time. So I don't want to sacrifice more time away from my family than I do now. And therefore, long distance is not a goal at the moment, just because of that.
You've trained with the likes of Chrissie Wellington, with Daniela, you train with her a lot. How do the two of them compare in their approaches, would you say, to training?
Oh, that's difficult. They are definitely both amazing athletes, especially on the bike. They were both like, I wouldn't say from another planet, but
almost.
It was, yeah, almost. It's quite impressive to see them. Like Chrissie, we went on to riding up a pass, and he started climbing, and she was still talking, and everyone was already falling behind. She didn't even notice. She didn't stop talking, but even if we were like hundreds of meters behind, because for her it was so easy, and everyone else was just dropped. And Daniela is a bit the same. They're both amazing athletes on the bike, and I think running wise they're pretty similar as well, as they can just hold the same high pace for a really long time. They're not super fast. Yeah, I don't have problems to beat them on the track or something, but they can just run the same solid high pace for the whole time, which I, of course, after 10, 20 kilometers, I'm starting to feel tired and my legs start to ache, and they just seem to have no problem with that. So it's impressive.
You were competed in whichever at London 2012 alongside Daniela when she was competing at the Olympic distance for Switzerland. You must be a pretty proud teammate to have seen her really, really flourish at the longer distance.
Yes, that was really interesting to see. She was always a good athlete. Like even at the Olympic distance, she got 7th behind me at the Olympics in Beijing, and she won a World Cup in Korea. So she wasn't a bad Olympic distance athlete. She was just lacking that little bit of speed in the end, and she switched to Brett. They were even asking me if I was okay with that, and I was saying yes, of course. And I could see, it's always interesting how Brett is looking at new athletes and seeing the advantages and the potential. And from the beginning he said, well, you can be an amazing long distance athlete. And first she wasn't believing, and she didn't want to do an Ironman, and she was like saying, no, half Ironman, yes, but no Ironman. And it was just amazing to see, yes, how she did her first Ironman in Zurich, and was asking me for advice, and I was laughing because I said, well, you better ask long distance people, not me. But so she transformed into an animal in a few months, actually, on the Ironman distance, which was really impressive.
Did you watch her in Kona this year? Did you watch the race, or did you follow it?
I couldn't watch because I was in Spain and we didn't have a good internet connection.
Oh.
But yes, but I called Brett after the swim and asked him how it went, and then of course I looked at the results in the morning.
And what did you think?
Well, I can't say I didn't expect the result because I saw her training and I knew she was really, really fit. After the swim, as I said, I knew from Brett that she was having a shocking swim, that she was having jellyfish bites and was in pain. But I still thought, well, 10 minutes, usually that's no problem for her. So it just depended on how much she was disturbed by the jellyfish. But yeah, I knew usually if she can ride as she normally rides, it should still be no problem for her to beat the others.
Do you do a lot of your training together?
No, we don't, because it's just a bit different. Like in St. Moritz, in a training camp in summer, we mostly meet in at the swimming pool at 7 a.m. Sometimes we do the same session there, sometimes not. We have different training sessions at the same time in the morning in this swim. So yeah, whatever normally, it depends what the rest of the day looks. But then the rest of the day, normally she has a longer bike ride and I have a more intense bike ride, or she has a longer run and I have a shorter, more intense run. So our training sessions really are not the same.
Have you learned from her?
I think we both learned from each other, yes. I think that's the advantage of having such a training group on such a high level with like international athletes and also short distance and long distance athletes. You can learn a lot from the other athletes, and that's really an advantage.
And how you've been with Brett since the very beginning, haven't you? How do you think that he has evolved as a coach in that time?
Well, we are always laughing because he says I made him a better coach, and he definitely made me a better athlete. But the way I made him a better coach is that after Beijing Olympics 2008, I wanted to go back to university to finish my law studies. And back at that time, he couldn't understand that, and he said, well, if you have your career now and look how many thousands of law students finish their studies and look how many athletes become Olympic champion, it's just 1 in 4 years. So I think it's pretty obvious what you have to do, and you can finish your studies when you're 50. So I said, well, that's not how it works for Swiss people. I will first finish my studies and then I can come back with the security of a good education and do a good job in sports. So we were discussing that, and he said, well, he's not training me if I'm not 100%. I said, well, that's fine, but I have to finish my studies first. I come back afterwards. So we actually didn't train with each other for 6 months. And then he was the one coming back and saying, okay, I'm still training you. And I see that you need this education. I see that some people don't work well being 100% in sports, but they do need something beside sports. And after that, he had a lot of Swiss and also other athletes studying besides training, and said, well, I wouldn't train them if I wouldn't have had you, and you wouldn't have made me train you again, because that's not how I used to be, and that's not my way. I would have done it as an Australian, but I can see it works for some people. So yeah, things like this, I think he also learned while I was training with him.
That's really cool, and it's about sort of that balance, isn't it? Balance in life,
exactly.
In everything, is just so important.
Definitely, to me, it's really important to have a life besides triathlon. It was also important, especially in times when you are injured or having problems or struggling. It's so much better if you have something besides sports and you don't feel like everything is lost and you don't have everything anymore. So to me, I think it was essential for my Olympic title to have these law studies, even if I might never use it, but just to have the security of a good education, the knowledge that I can, even if I get lost at the Olympics, that I can just go back and start a job. That was really, really important to me.
Can you imagine now ever working in an office 9 to 5?
Not really. I found the studies really interesting, but as you say, I was an athlete for such a long time and had my freedom in how I want to plan my day. So I think I would be struggling to just sit in an office for the whole day.
But you still do a lot of like extra work and things like that and projects outside of actually just swim, bike, run. You do loads to get kids involved as well, don't you? So tell us a little bit about the Nicola Spirig Kids Cup and your foundation as well.
Yes, I think as an Olympic champion you kind of also have a bit of an obligation to give back, and to use that title in Switzerland is extremely special because from Summer Olympics there are only 4 women ever in history that have an Olympic gold medal, and the first was back in 1900. So
wow.
it doesn't happen really often. And I just felt that also with Brett's support that I should give back. I love to work with kids, so we started this little kids series. Children from 5 to 14 can compete in a triathlon in like 8 places in Switzerland, and now also in other countries like Cyprus and Greece. They started to copy that, and it's really like they are really short distances, and the small ones can use swim aids or can come with Leica bikes and bike helps and everything. So it's not about performance but about showing them the sport and showing them that sports is really fun and being active is really cool. And I just loved seeing the kids and doing the triathlon and having fun and laughing. It's really nice.
And has Yannis done it yet?
He did, yes. Last year he wasn't really interested yet, and this year he did 2 of the little races, and he was really proud. So it was good to see him doing it, and I as a mom was especially proud of the fact that he was smiling the whole way. So I said, well, that's exactly what we want, kids having fun doing it, and so that made me proud.
Do you ever get nervous, Nicola, before big races?
All the time, yes.
How do you deal with them then?
I used to be really bad in dealing with it before I was with Brett. Like as a junior, I used to get nervous like a week before the race and not sleep well anymore and dreaming about the race. So I was really bad. And then I started with Brett, and he said, well, part of it is just that you're not prepared properly, and that you think you're not prepared well and not trained enough. So we started to prepare the way I should have, and he also showed me a lot of his training books from before I trained with him, from world champions and former Olympic champions, showed me their training results and how they train. And that helped me quite a lot to see that I wasn't that bad, and they didn't do that much faster times. And of course I started to try to beat the times, and when I came to the races afterwards I felt pretty fit, I felt prepared properly. And to me now it always helps to know that I can just do my best, and no one should expect more from me, especially not myself. So I can do the race and do my best at every time, and I should be happy with that. So that takes some of the pressure and some of the nervous, how do you say that in English?
Like
just being nervous away.
And then you wear a golden horse in your ear, right, for good luck.
Yes.
So what's that about?
Well, that was actually years and years ago. There was a present from Brett but it was a silver horse first. He had that. He gave a lot of athletes some earrings. Emma Snowshill was the mouse, and he gave her a little mouse. I can't remember why. And he always said I remember him. He was training horses before, race horses, and I reminded him to those horses. So he gave me a little silver horse, and I don't know anymore if I complained or if he came after a few years with a golden horse, because he said, well, no wonder you can't win the big races with a silver horse. It needs to be a golden horse. And so he replaced it. And I used to, for the bigger races, I still wear one golden horse. And for the Olympics, only the Olympics, I wear both golden horses. So that's the good luck charm.
So we will see both golden horses.
Exactly, yes.
In Tokyo in 2020.
Only at the Olympics, yes.
That's incredible. Nicola, I honestly, I feel very, very honoured that you've taken the time out to speak to me. So thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you too.
Helen, it sounds like you were pretty excited about interviewing Nicola Spirig. Would you say it's one of your favourite interviews that you've done?
Definitely. Absolutely.
Pretty excited to talk to a double Olympic medalist, right?
I think it was like I would have known known of Nicola, when I worked in Switzerland, and she was back in 2010, and she would have been, I probably would have written news stories about her back then.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't. And I watched a documentary maybe last year about her and Daniela Ryf, and it was really interesting. And it was translated because it was all in German. So yeah, just to have the opportunity to talk to her and find out more about her as a person I felt really, really grateful for her to say, yep, I can do that, no problem.
And I think it's ace that these massive megastars of the sport are starting to realise that they can get their story out to the fans through podcasts, probably much more effectively than they can through mainstream media. So it's awesome that you managed to get an interview with her on. And who knows who the next Olympic medalist might be on the show.
Who knows?
Fingers crossed.
But it will be really cool to see her come back for Tokyo 2020. I mean, that'll be amazing.
Yeah,
and wow, wasn't it fascinating though, Rob, about all the stuff with Gwen Jorgensen and the mind games and that, and yeah, so much. It was just honestly for the interview, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was amazed at how open she was about all of that stuff, because it's kind of, is it a trick you can only use once you've then talked about it in an interview afterwards? Does the next time, because it's not impossible to imagine that Gwen Jorgensen listens to this interview to get an insight into her mind. Do you know what I mean? Because she doesn't do that many interviews. No. So is it the kind of thing where she'll be going, oh, I see, that was the mental game she's trying to play with me?
She would have known straight away, wouldn't she, when she started talking to her?
Yeah. But I think there's a difference between knowing that someone's doing that to mess with you and feeling that you're being messed with in the middle of an Olympic final.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's then knowing it's a preparation, isn't it, for absolutely everything. And
totally.
In that sense, Nicola prepared for absolutely everything. And if you perhaps know that it, then the mental games come into it, a bit like, it's like cricket, isn't it? There's always the mental games. And so how do you prepare for that sledging and everything? I'm not saying that this was sledging at all, but, it's almost, well, that's part of it. Okay, well, I need to make sure that that's part of my training up to the next Olympics. I need to work on the mental aspect of it as well.
Yeah. It's very reminiscent of the old Chris McCormack interviews where he tells stories about how, like the year after Faris Al Sultan won, Chris McCormack followed him around the world to every single little event that he did, even the sort of little corporate ones he did in Dubai to promote his little triathlon team. Chris McCormack would get himself invited to the race and go and beat him. And every race he'd go up to him and say, I'm going to beat you at Kona next year. And then Faris talked in interviews about how much, quite openly, how much he disliked Chris McCormack for having done this to him. But McCormack would say, I didn't care about that. Like, I've got total respect for him as a champion, but as a person, it's my job to get inside his head and do everything I can to beat him. So I don't know. My personal thing is I'm a bit of a, I don't know, it's a bit sad. Like the Corinthian ideal of two people racing each other side by side and then shaking hands at the end. I don't like the whole bringing the attitude of boxing into it. But it's different horses for different courses, isn't it? And that's probably a small part of the reason I'm not an Olympic champion. And
I guess so. Well, yeah, and you know, if you want to win a medal, you've got to do everything that you can to try to get it. I mean, Nicola did say, no, it's about swim, bike, run. I don't want to do that. But then when it was pointed out, well, you're not going to win, it's like, oh, okay. I'll have a think.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? The elite sport, when things happen at that level, it's almost it's a different thing to age group sport, because the age group it's all about us getting the best out of ourselves and hopefully the people around us helping us to get more out of ourselves. It's pretty rare, I think, that two age groupers would have any kind of banter during a race like that. Who knows? Maybe it does happen at the very top level these days, but I'm more about the side-by-side aspect of it than the person against person aspect.
Well, so if it does happen, you've been, you've had it, then let us know. It would be good to find out.
Yeah, cool. All right, a couple of bits of news for us then. First up, sadly, there is no more Ironman Edinburgh 70.3. It's been ended, hasn't it?
It has 2 years. First year, the sea was awful, wasn't it? It was just horrendous. But yeah, they've had almost 2,500 athletes doing it, but it is going to be no longer. However, Rob, there is another Ironman 70.3 on the horizon. A new race in Morocco has been announced for next year, 70.3 Marrakesh. It does sound like it would be quite cool.
I was going to say, Health, it sounds like exactly the kind of thing that might be up your street. Is it something that might be wheedling its way into maybe it's going on my bucket list?
I think it would be going below Los Cabos, but it just sounded, I was reading and I was like, that sounds ace. It sounds, yeah. You go up, you wind your way through the Berber village.
I don't think that my innards are strong enough to go and eat food in Morocco. I just haven't got a strong enough constitution.
Sort yourself out, Wilby. It would be delicious. It would be amazing.
All my friends who've surfed and sailed there have all had bad tummies, and I have a bad tummy at the best of times. So,
not a reason not to go to a country.
Well, it is for me. It's enough to scare me off.
That is a poor excuse when you've got like the Atlas Mountains in the background. Oh, it would be. Yeah, one for the long list, I think, Rob.
Yeah. Good. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for this week, doesn't it, I think?
Yep, it does. Thank you very much for everyone. Thank you very much to Nicola Spirig for coming on and doing that interview.
Yeah, and thanks very much to our sponsors, precisionhydration.com. Remember, you can use the code OxygenAddict to get £9.99 worth of free precision hydration. And also remember that you can get yourself onto our webinar on how to train yourself better at 70.3 and Ironman. Just click on the link in the show notes for that one. How are things going with Fueled by Cake, Hells?
Yep, still ticking along, Rob. Fueledbycake.com. If you haven't yet purchased a charity recipe book, it's £10. I'm putting it together for Melanoma UK, Young Epilepsy, and my local hospice. And there are recipes in there from the likes of Chrissie Wellington and Vicky Holland and Laura Siddle and Rachel Joyce and Emma Pooley and Judy Murray and loads of other. Oh, this guy called Rob Wilby and loads of other triathletes and friends and family. It's all for charity. Loads of yummy recipes. Fueledbycake.com. I'm trying to raise £15,000, so if you could help, that would be amazing. Yeah, going to be doing a fundraising event in a couple of weeks in Knutsford, Rob. So
jolly good.
Hoping to sell a few more there too.
Good stuff. All right, everyone. Well, listen, thank you so much for listening. This has been the Oxygen Addict Triathlon Podcast. I'm Coach Rob Wilby.
I'm Helen Murray.
And until next week, have a great, safe training and racing week, everybody. Get yourself out there, make yourself some cake, get out and enjoy the last of the rays of the sun of autumn before winter kicks in hard. We'll see you all again next week. Cheers, everyone. See ya.